Hello and welcome into another very special edition of the Mind Your Business podcast, produced each week by the Boone Area Chamber of Commerce and brought to you by our friends at Appalachian Commercial Real Estate and UNC Health Appalachian. I am David Jackson, President and CEO of the Boone Area Chamber. And as we have been discussing this week, we've got the Town of Boone Council election coming up in November with early voting just around the corner. We have been so graciously joined by each of the three candidates for Boone Town Council. And today's conversation is with Edie Tugman, one of the incumbents on this year's ballot. So Edie, thank you very much for joining us. Always a pleasure to chat with you.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, we'll give you the opportunity to formally introduce yourself to those that might not be as familiar with the current makeup of town council or not had a chance to meet you yet. Just kind of give your opening remarks and anything that you would like to say about your candidacy at this point.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Edie Tugman, and I currently serve on the Boone Town Council. For the past almost 2 years, I have been serving as Mayor Pro Tem, and kind of a surprise to me, I have really loved the challenge, the interesting, the fun, and the joy of being able to serve the town of Boone. I have always been somebody who said, I will clean your bathroom before I will serve on your committee. But this is the biggest committee of all, and I am flabbergasted at how much I enjoy it, how challenged I am by it, and how much I want to continue doing this. There are two significant issues for me that will arise in the course of the next 2 years anyway. The first is our housing situation. We have a dearth, an absence of affordable workforce housing. And by workforce, I'm talking about teachers, firemen, policemen, nurses, people who work in our offices, the support staff of so many of our enterprises in Boone. They cannot afford to live here. The cost of housing is so significant that they live in Ashe County, they live in Wilkes County, Lenore, or even Tennessee. We are hopeful and we are doing everything we can to try and find creative housing solutions that we can bring to Boone and even hopefully Watauga County, perhaps as a joint project. We would love to be able to work with the county on something that begins to work on this particular issue. The second issue for me is our comprehensive plan. Our first comprehensive plan was put in place in 2006. It has been revised a number of times since then, but a lot has changed in all these years in Boone, and our approaches probably need to be somewhat different. We need to meet our constituents' needs. That, we hope, will be, again, another creative enterprise that we will align our comprehensive plan with the kind of growth that we believe and our constituents want in Boone over the next 10 to 15 years.
Excellent. Well, thank you for that. And we'll start with a question that you alluded to a little bit, and maybe I'll ask this a little bit retrospectively because you are currently serving on town council. What was it that got you to run in the first place, and why are you seeking re-election?
I wish I could remember exactly what it was that made me decide I thought I needed to do this. I think it's easy to sit on the sidelines and say, they should be doing this, or why aren't they doing that? And there was part of me that said, I may not know exactly what to do, but I certainly am interested in trying to be part of the solution, as opposed to simply sitting on the sidelines and not being part of much of anything.
Well said. So the Chamber's mission is to serve as a catalyst for a diverse and engaged local economy. What do you feel best defines an economy that is both diverse and engaged?
The engaged part's really hard. I wish we could engage our economy in creative ways to address some of our issues. It is hard to draft folks to serve on commissions and committees and to be a part of issue solutions and creative thought processes. The folks in Boone are working as hard as they can at their own jobs, and to set aside hours every month to serve on a commission and be engaged in the process is asking a lot, and we know it, but we have to have citizens that will become engaged. Diverse, it's everything across our community. It's from the university to the hospital to the folks who can't live here but work here. It's the students and their interactions with the town and our interactions with them. It's our neighborhoods who are struggling with some of the issues of student housing. It's, diverse. It's pretty much of everything across the spectrum, up and down the various roads. It's traffic, it's parking, it's housing, it's taxes, it's water and sewer. It's pretty much of everything that we look and touch every single day.
You mentioned a few moments ago the comprehensive plan process is one of your two priorities. And if you look at this conversation around the comprehensive plan, that dates back to September of 2022, when this current process was started. The town currently reevaluating and potentially updating that plan was the goal of that initial conversation back in 2022. And I want to pause here for a second and give some benefit to our audience who might not necessarily be as versed in government ease as some of us might be. But as defined by the Town of Boone, this is a long-range comprehensive advisory planning document that provides a future vision for growth and development of the town that contains goals, objectives, strategies, and action steps intended to direct town actions. So now with that definition out there for all to enjoy, and knowing that you all already have alluded to this, what are some of the concerns or opportunities that you're hoping are addressed this time with the process?
Oh, you just opened the door for me. I'm going to talk about two elephants in the room. The first elephant is, why would a developer who comes to Boone develop affordable workforce housing, a complex of townhouses or duplexes or an apartment complex that contains 1, 2, or 3 bedroom housing for single to family housing that rent for $950 to $1,500 a month, when they can come to town and they can develop a student housing complex with 3 or 4 bedrooms in each unit that rents for, by the unit, $2,400 to $3,200 a month. You talk about the necessity to be creative. We have no idea how to solve this type of problem. We're struggling with it. Everybody is struggling with it across the country in certain environments. We are not Davidson, for example, with all that wonderful flat land, those rolling hillsides. We are Boone. We are developed in a valley that is pretty close to being a funnel. We have so little land left to be developed. The second elephant in the room, and I struggle to say this, it's the expanding student population. The university is very proud that it houses between 6,000 and 7,000 students. There are this year 23,000 students. Not all of them are on campus. The university trustees acknowledged that 600 plus or minus are new to Boone this year. 600 or 700 new students that want to live in Boone, some of whom are now having to live in a hotel that the university has rented for the academic year. Why is it our responsibility to be the provider, the primary provider for student housing for the university? That's an issue. Those are the kinds of issues that we are confronting in revising the comprehensive plan. The citizens of Boone, the people who live and are able to work here, need to address What are the priorities? How do they want this town to evolve over the course of the next 10 to 15 years? And it's not going to be easy.
Well, speaking of things that aren't necessarily easy, let's talk road projects for a second. Hitting you with all the infrastructure.
One frying pan into another.
Yeah, that's right. The High Country Council of Governments is in the process of gathering feedback from various municipalities in the region that will help form the version of the statewide transportation improvement program, or the STIP as we all know it. That is getting ready to be updated. A section of the Daniel Boone Parkway, which is also known as the Boone Bypass, is currently on the STIP. Members of Town Council have been very public in sharing a desire for the 105 Super Street project to come back around after the previous Town Council let that project slide back in 2019. Traffic flow continues to be a point of conversation around here, as I'm sure you well know. Do you support either one or both of these projects? And if not so, what solutions would you support in terms of moving traffic around Boone in a little bit more expedient and efficient manner?
Having lived in Boone since I think it was Christmas of 1966, and heard about the Daniel Boone Parkway and its various ideations, I fully support. There is way too much traffic that comes through Boone that doesn't need to come through Boone. And we have been warned that bypasses historically take traffic, tourist traffic, visitor traffic, downtown business traffic away from downtown. I don't think that will be an issue. We have so many visitors to our area that come to walk downtown Boone, to go to our restaurants and our breweries, to attend the theater. I believe that the best solution, and it may not be the best, but I think it is the best solution, is promoting the Daniel Boone Parkway. I think it will really alleviate some of the significant traffic issues we have. I would like to revisit the new 105 interchange, or the intersection project. I have struggled for a long time to understand why we need to bring more traffic into downtown Boone. And I consider that area as being part of downtown Boone. Why we need all those extra lanes and make it easier to get to the places where we have 2-lane streets that are 20 miles an hour and cannot manage the traffic that we have now. On Friday afternoons, King Street is frequently backed up on the eastern side of town, all the way down to New Market. And traffic is backed up going through town as far the other way. We can't manage the traffic we have now. We have to take traffic that doesn't want or need to be in town around somehow.
You mentioned the date stamp, if you will, on the Daniel Boone Parkway conversation, and you're right. That's been going on almost since Daniel Boone was up here himself, it feels like.
It feels like.
Yeah. Let me hit you with one more legacy project here as we're talking about these in succession. The Howard Street revitalization project is getting closer to reality. Construction bids are set to go out soon on that, and that's another project that's been talked about for decades. Assuming that we're far enough along now in that process to actually see a shovel in the ground in the near future, what do you feel like the town's next big priority should be when we're talking about major infrastructure projects?
And you don't mean the Howard Street, because
I don't mean, assuming that Howard Street is far enough along that we can check that one off. What's next?
Wow. The town unveiled last week in our council meeting that we are in a contract to purchase the Western Youth Network property. It adjoins our water tank property up in Junaluska. We are hoping to develop a project with the Junaluska community that will begin to address some of the needs in the county. There are all kinds of things that are being thrown around. And one of them is the possibility of a daycare center, the possibility of housing for the elderly in the Western Youth Network building, the possibility of developing some affordable housing on that property. That's a pretty big project. We are also have been in very soft conversations with the county about potential development of affordable housing out on the Brookshire Road. And I am fully in favor of whatever we can do to advance that project, and believe that it's a really important project, and it's going to be a big project. But that's a project that's going to be probably 2 years down the road. And so it's a hope and a dream, but I don't know that that's going to solve the problem as quickly as everyone wishes it could be solved.
Staying on that side of the county, several years ago, the town of Boone bought a piece of land on the east side of town, commonly referred to as the Bolick property. And at the time of that purchase, it was considered by council and staff to be a landing spot for several municipal operations, in addition to other potential items. Now that that's been kind of put in pause from its initial plan, what do you support as the best use for that land and a town asset as you move forward?
We have a really significant issue with our public utilities, our police department. That property was purchased with the hopes of developing it as a municipal complex. I think what was not known at the time or unaddressed at the time was the cost of moving dirt, making that property accessible for the various components of a municipal complex. Originally, the original engineering estimate was $15.6 million just to move dirt to create the spaces that we needed. I don't believe that ever is going to happen. The most recent engineering design or project analysis is in the neighborhood between $5,000 and $6,000. Public Utilities is currently in a building that was sold a number of years ago. The building is not appropriate. The space is not appropriate. We have got to find a place for public utilities. In addition to that, we need another fire department, and our police department has to have better housing than where it is now. These are three processes that we are currently examining about whether or not it is feasible to develop these at that site. And there may be room left over for something else, but at this point in time, we've got to find public utilities a place to live.
You address this a bit in just the escalation of cost with that project that we've seen over the years. Municipalities in that regard are very much like businesses, where you see cost of labor, cost of goods or services like you're talking about constantly on the rise, and really no visible sign of that changing anytime soon. So what do you support in terms of continued revenue growth for the town of Boone, so you can deliver all of the services that you aspire to the citizens and businesses here in the community?
Well, you just keep opening different little categories that are so touchy. I'm going to do it one more time. I'm going to talk about the elephant in the room. In 2014 or 2015, the county chose to redistribute the sales tax. It has meant a loss of close to $26 million for the town of Boone. We've been told within the past year that will never change. We lost a lawsuit asking that the courts help us redefine where the sales tax goes and how it gets distributed, and they declined to do so. We really don't have a lot of alternative with regard to the sales tax. But our hope is that somehow we can get the county to engage in talking about what is a fair distribution for the entity in the county that generates a vast proportion of the sales tax, and might in some way be able to find a formula that continues to support places like Seven Devils and Beach Mountain. Blowing Rock will always get its share, but the shares have to be more evenly distributed. And we recognize that the county has a significant amount of burden that it bears, but the redistribution of the sales tax is a significant issue. And our hope is that that will be a more deliberate growth for the town of Boone. I'm probably not saying that right, but it's a touchy issue.
Speaking of growth, and the last question that I've got for you before we turn it over to you for some closing comments, when we think about traditional economic development, I think that we can all agree that traditional economic development looks a little bit different here because of some of the housing and childcare conversations that you have alluded to already, and certainly we all talk about just about every day here. What do you feel like the appropriate role is for the town to play in terms of working to retain existing businesses while also recruiting new businesses and potential workforce to the area? And what will you support to back the stance that you have in that regard?
I honestly hadn't thought about that. I know I serve on the DBDA, the Downtown Business Association, and I hadn't thought about our responsibility to help with recruitment. I know that our mayor sits on the Economic Development Commission, and I know that they are doing everything they can to help attract new businesses. I think one of the things we have to do is find a way to encourage the kind of business we want. We are looking as part of the comprehensive plan at things like the 15-minute cities, smaller developments spaced throughout the town that bring businesses closer to residential areas. We have several areas of Boone that are probably fairly prime for redevelopment. And I'm thinking, of course, of the Public Utilities Building on King Street. Once we found a place for public utilities to live in our housing crisis, that piece of property will be primed for redevelopment. What shape that development takes becomes part of the comprehensive plan, period, development. Excuse me.
All right. With that said, any closing thoughts that you've got, or things that maybe you wanted to address that didn't come out in the questioning here?
Oh, good heavens. I've unveiled several elephants. I'm not sure there's anything else I should do except say thank you for this opportunity. I look forward to 2 more years on council, or 4 more years, depending upon how the vote goes. I am asking for your vote because my husband says if you don't ask for the business, you will not get it. And I'm encouraging everyone to vote early. Early voting starts October 19th and ends November 4th, and election day is November 7th. Thank you for the time and the opportunity. I appreciate it.
Well, Edie, we thank you for your time here and your service to the town of Boone already. As we've said to every candidate during the series, it takes an awful lot for somebody to put their name on a ballot these days in our political times. So we thank you for that commitment to our community. We wish you best of luck with the process and look forward to talking to you again soon.
Thank you, David.